Welcome to Dr. Amber Thornton's Know and Grow podcast, where you're never alone in navigating life's biggest moments and toughest lessons. Join me, Dr. Amber Thornton, clinical psychologist, mother of two, as I explore motherhood, parenting, relationships, career, mental health, and the ongoing journey of personal evolution. No, it doesn't stop. These conversations will absolutely make you laugh, may make you cry, will get you to reflect, but more importantly, you'll grow and we'll get to grow together. So I'm glad you're here and I hope that you'll come back. Tune in weekly for informative, thought-provoking, inspiring conversations right here with me. Hey, welcome back to Dr. Amber's Know and Grow podcast. So glad that you are back to know and grow and learn with me. I'm Dr. Amber if this is your first time coming here, and I'm a clinical psychologist who is also a mom, and I'm the author of A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, which if you haven't already, you should pre-order your copy. That is a book about helping parents to learn how to regulate their own emotions so that they can be present and able to help their children do it as well. There's a lot of things that I do, a lot of interests that I have, but I really love coming to this podcast every week to talk with you, to share my interests with you, and also to share how I am growing, how I am learning, how I am showing up in this world. So thank you for coming back. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube. Also shout out to the day ones who have been listening to the audio version of the podcast for forever. I appreciate every one of y'all. So today is I'm not gonna hype it up or psych myself out. I'm gonna do something that I'm really excited to do, but also is somewhat new to me. So I see this episode being a blend of psychology, astrology, and tarot all wrapped up into one. This is ideally all the things I've been playing around with and me essentially putting it all together to help me and grow and learn in my journey of astrology and tarot, but then also to help you move even further in your journey of personal development, evolution, all of that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore the first house, because remember I originally had the first segment of our podcast be about astrology. But I noticed that I didn't like that because it felt really rushed, and there was a lot more that I wanted to say about astrology and share about astrology. So instead, what I'm going to do is play around with having episodes once a month that are deep, not deep, very basic, but also we're talking about astrology for the most part. And so I also told you all that we would come back and explore the houses. So this is our first try at it. So today we're going to talk all about the first house in your birth chart. So if you've been wanting to learn or understand a little bit more about the birth chart and the houses within that, this is your opportunity. We're going to go through the first house today. And then in the months to come, we'll do all the rest of them. But I'm thinking once a month, we'll do something like this. We'll see how it goes. So what I would like to do, my agenda for today in this episode is I'm going to talk to you about the first house and how you should be thinking about it. I'm going to review some qualities. I'm looking at my notes here. I'm going to review some qualities of each element with regard to the first house, and I'll explain what all that means. I'm also going to give you all an affirmation for what the sign in your first house might be to kind of help you understand, okay, this is what is in my first house with regard to the sign, which is also your rising sign. So essentially, we're talking about your rising sign today. You'll get a feel for how you can embody that or show up. But then I'm also going to pull some cards today, y'all. I'm going to pull some tarot cards for each element, not each sign because that would take way too long. I'm going to pull a card for each elemental group to kind of help guide you in terms of an asset that you carry with regard to your sign and your element in your first house, but then also something that might be hindering you in terms of actually showing up in that way. This whole episode idea came to me in the shower this morning. Excuse me, guys. This whole episode came to me in the shower, and it's because I have been playing around with all of this stuff. You know, I've been a psychologist for years. I'm playing around with astrology. I'm playing around with tarot. So this feels like a blend of all of it, right? Don't it? Okay. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about the first house. So today I'm going to actually be using some books that are guiding my practice in this. This first one I've showed you all last week is called A Map to Your Soul, using the astrology of fire, earth, air, and water to live deeply and fully by Jennifer Freed, PhD. She's a psychologist. So this book is cool because it's like astrology and psychology blended together. But this book is basically about the houses, but she just took a spin, like a more psychological spin to it, how to understand the houses. So I want to read to you how she thinks about the first house. Well, actually, I'm not going to read to you. I'm going to first tell you the first house, the very basic understanding is really just how you project yourself into the world and how the world perceives you. So again, the sign that is in your first house. So if you take your birth chart, I should have brought a picture of a birth chart. Let me pull one up on my phone real quick to see if I can find it. I'm going to find mine. When you look at your birth chart, you will have a big circle. And then the first house, that is your rising sign. So if you see that, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. That is actually my birth chart right there. And so in my first house is Aries because I'm an Aries rising. So whatever sign is in your first house, that's your rising sign. So the sign we're talking about today, not only does it describe how you show up with regard to your first house, but it also is your rising sign. So this is a good episode today to really learn about yourself. So the first house is how you project yourself in the world and how the world perceives you. So when I think about the first house, I always just think about your first impression. Like sometimes people will say it's the first impression sign, like your rising sign is the first impression that you often give to the world. But it's more so about how you walk into the world, how you are supposed to show up in the world, or how you want to show up in the world, how you project yourselves to others. What I will say is that sometimes this can be really different from how you then show up in your personal relationships, your more intimate relationships. And that's absolutely the case with me. So for example, and today I'm going to use myself as an example a ton of times. When I first started to understand my birth chart and I was looking at this and I was like, so I'm a Scorpio. That's my sun sign. That's like my main one, right? The one that everybody knows. I'm a Scorpio, but I'm an Aries rising. And at first that felt really different because I was like, ooh, I don't see how this relates. I don't really understand how that's a part of me. But then when I really started to understand that, again, your rising sign or the sign associated with your first house is really about how you walk into the world, how you project yourself into the world, it started to click because when I think about myself, when it comes to how I want to show up in the world, how I walk into the world, how I think about myself situated with how people in society and communities think about me, I do have this very big, sometimes very grandiose idea of how I think about myself, my ideas. I want my ideas to be shared. I want my ideas to be known. I want to be out there. I think that's why I've always been really gravitated to having some sort of public platform. But y'all, even back in the day, I was blogging on MySpace. I had all the blogs. That was always something that I did because I always wanted to put myself out there. I was always very bold in that way. So when you think about, or when I think about how I show myself to the world versus my more intimate relationships, they're really different because, so for example, my career tends to be more of how I show up in terms of showing the world. And it tends to be more bold. It tends to be more public. It tends to be more action oriented. It tends to be a lot more directive versus my more intimate relationships. I tend to fall back a little bit more. I'm okay with letting someone else take the lead. I am very much more reserved. And those two are in contrast, but it's all in design because how I show up in my intimate relationships doesn't have to be the same way how I show up into the world. So I think that's something to make note of. Your first house is really about, and again, I'm going to read it one more time for you, how you walk into the world, how you project yourself into the world, and how the world perceives you. I often get feedback from other people who may not know me as intimately, but it's like feedback that I'm so bold, or I'm so brave, I'm so courageous. And but then also sometimes my close friends or like my more intimate relationships, it takes them a while to see that. And it's because they may not be as tapped into how I'm walking into the world, how the world is perceiving me. So again, first house, how are you walking into the world? How does the world perceive you? What is your first impression to other people, especially people in the world, right? So that is a very easy, very simple way to think about your first house. Also, another way to think about the first house is very person centered. So it's very you centered. So, for instance, when you think about psychology, if you think about like the id versus the ego, this is a very old concept that I don't use often. So I hope I'm getting this right. But your ego sometimes tries to keep the id in check because the id is very much all about me, all about me, all about me. You can kind of think of your first house like that too. It's all about you at the center. You as a person, you as your personhood, you and your personality is your first house. So now we have a good understanding of what the first house means. So I want to dive into what this means for the elements that show up in your first house. Okay. So actually, I'm going to look at this back of this book because there's some really good information on the back of this book that breaks down the different elements. So first, let me talk about what I mean when I say elements. So again, someone who's interested in astrology, what we know is that there are 12 zodiac signs. And then within those signs, they're broken down into 4 different elemental groups. We have fire, we have earth, we have air, and we have water. Fire, earth, air, and water. So again, you can think of this as like your sun sign, like your regular sign. But today, remember, we're mostly talking about the sun, the sign in your first house, which is your rising sign. So I'm going to tell you all of the zodiac signs that are actually fall within these elements so you can kind of get a feel for where you fall. And again, you can think about your sun sign or you can think about the sign in your first house, which is your rising sign. So fire signs. Fire is Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo. So again, think about, is this your sun sign or is this the sign in your first house? We're talking about Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo. So my rising sign, the sign associated with my first house, is Aries. That's fire. My daughter is an Aries sun. So that's her core sign is Aries sun. So we have some similarities in that. We tend to be very bold, very creative, very directive, very out there, very action oriented, but in very different ways. For my daughter, because it's her sun sign, it's more her core personality. But for me, it's not my core personality, but it's more so how I walk into the world. Again, those are different things. So, for fire signs, that element of fire, we're really thinking about your ability to be creative and dynamic. So, fire, like, think about creating, creativity, whether this is with your words, whether this is with your body, whether this is with your mind, whether this is with your hands, creativity, but then also your ability to be dynamic. And again, I always think about boldness when it comes to fire signs, especially Aries. That's the one big word that comes to me: bold, courageous, action, directive, but also creative and dynamic. All right, so let's move to earth sign. For the earth elements, we're thinking about Taurus, we're thinking about Capricorn, and we are also thinking about Virgo. Fun fact about me, I love earth signs. They are so grounding for me personally. As someone who is a water sun, I'm a Scorpio, so I need a lot of like grounding because sometimes if it's too much water, I will just float away. I will just be so deep into my feelings, and so earth really grounds me. Both of my parents were Virgos, which Virgos can be very, we'll get into that. I'm not going to digress here. Both of my parents were Virgos. My brother is a Capricorn. My husband is a Taurus. So I have been around Virgos I've been around earth signs for a very long time. Most of my intimate connections are earth signs. But then also one thing I've really noticed, y'all, is like I love working with earth signs, especially Virgos. Virgos are so detail oriented. They get the job done. They are so reliable, dependable. I kid you not. Any virtual assistant that I've had or any like assistant I've had has always been a Virgo, and I have never had an issue. So shout out to the Virgos because y'all know how to get shit done. I also love Virgos because I'm a Virgo moon. We're not talking about moon signs today, but I am a Virgo moon. So I have parts of that in me. So, earth signs. So, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Earth is that part of you that is grounded and centered. So, again, when we come back to the first house, thinking about your rising sign, how you show up in the world, how you walk into the world, how people perceive you in the world, there's probably this groundedness, this centeredness, this calmness, this soothing that people are probably gravitated to, but that also you are giving off in the world, but also the world needs that part of you, right? So again, the part of you that is grounded and centered. Okay, let's move to air. So what I will say is I have always growing up with my interest in astrology, I've been very aware of water and earth signs, and it's because I grew up with a lot of earth signs. I'm a water sign, so of course I knew a ton about those. I didn't really know a lot about fire and air until I had my kids. Because again, my daughter is her sun sign is Aries, so that's fire. But then her moon and her rising sign are Gemini, so that's air. And then also my son is a Gemini, but then also he actually has a good mix of his moon sign and his rising sign, Leo and Capricorn. But having my kids gave me the opportunity to learn about these other elements of fire and air. So I'm excited to get to know the fire signs and the air signs a little bit more. And thankfully, because of my kids, they kind of introduced me to that. So let's get back to air signs. So with air, we're talking about Gemini, we're talking about Libra, and we're talking about Aquarius. Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. And I had to pause because, again, air signs are the ones that I'm probably least familiar with, but I am learning and I am growing. Okay? Okay. So, with air signs, the big thing that I think about, and it just comes to mind so much when I think of my son, who is a Gemini sun, but that's not his rising sign. His rising sign is actually a Leo. But with air, it's mental clarity. Air signs are very, like, I love this about air signs: mental, logical, rational, like the mental clarity, top notch. Air signs also can be so intelligent because of that like higher level mental capacity that they have, unmatched. So it's so funny when you think about air, when you think about fresh air, it comes in, it cleanses it, there's like a crispness to it. It's just kind of like just purity, like clearing, clarity. Mental clarity is a really amazing quality of air signs. So again, we're talking about Libra, we're talking about Gemini, and we're talking about Aquarius. So when you take that and you think about your first house or your rising sign, that means that the world, your first impression, what you're giving off into the world, what people are perceiving of you is that mental clarity, that rationality, that logicalness, that crisp clarity that you bring to a room or a situation or a conversation. Stellar. So that is what we're thinking about for air signs. And then lastly, water signs. I always have a soft spot for water because, again, I'm a Scorpio, water sun. But again, my rising sign is fire. So for the water signs, so this is Scorpio, this is Pisces, and this is Cancer. So we are thinking about, whenever I think of water signs, I always think of emotion, feeling, nurturing, emotional depth, your ability to feel and to flow, to feel and to flow with other people, to feel other people, to allow that to flow. Like there's this nurturance, there's this comforting, there's this connection, there's this depth to water signs that is so healing and so comforting. It can be intense sometimes. But again, we're talking about the positive qualities here. So again, this is Pisces, this is Cancer, this is Scorpio. So if you are a water sign in your first house, or that is your rising sign, probably what the world needs from you and what you're giving into the world, what other people are perceiving of you, is that connection, that nurturance, that those emotions, that feeling, and the ability for it to flow, which is really good for personal relationships, intimate relationships, connection with other people. It's exciting, you all. I'm very excited. So I hope that helped you. We're not done. I'm sorry. I'm just summarizing. I hope that helped you to, one, understand the first house, but then also to understand the elements that might be in your first house, or that might be your rising sign, and some of the qualities that are associated with them. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into the book again, A Map to Your Soul, and I want to read to you some affirmations that she identified for each sign that is associated with, again, how you show up in the world, how people are perceiving you, your first impression into the world, what you're giving to the world, just in terms of your first house and your rising sign. So I'm going to go through all 12. And again, we are not thinking about our sun signs. And so again, the sun sign is the main one that everybody knows. We're thinking about the sign that is associated with your first house, which is also your rising sign. So I'm going to start from the top. We start with Aries and go all the way through. Aries, again, Aries is fire. I am bold. Taurus is earth. I am beautiful. Gemini is air. I am a communicator. Cancer is water. I am a nurturer. Leo, I am a performer. Our Leos are fire. Virgo, I am a helper. Remember, Virgo is earth. Libra, which is an air sign, I am a harmonizer. Scorpio, water. I am a prober. Sagittarius, which is fire. I am positive. Capricorn, which is earth. I am accomplishing. Aquarius, which is air. I am friendly. And then Pisces, water. I am sensitive. So again, these are just some statements to kind of help you understand how you show up in the world, how you might want to be showing up in the world, how other people might be perceiving you. Excuse me, I have a little bit of I'm recovering from a cold that the children gave me. As I read these, some of them are really good. Some of them I feel like need a little bit more clarification. So like, for instance, Taurus, I am beautiful. I feel like that is one aspect of Taurus, because Taurus, and again, this is much more deep than we're getting into today. But for instance, my husband is a Taurus sun. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Venus loves beautiful things. Venus loves beauty. Venus loves things that make us feel beautiful. Venus is very into like what's going to make you feel beautiful, what's going to make you look beautiful, what's going to make the world beautiful. Looks, but then also like depth too. So I always tell my husband, oh, you're so Venusian. He hates that because he's like, get the fuck out of here with it. But that is where that comes from. But I also think that there's so much more to Taurus that we can talk about. So I think another episode for another day, we can dive more into like just qualities and characteristics of each one of these signs. For Gemini, I am a communicator. I think that's spot on, because I think when I think of Gemini, again, that air is that mental clarity, but Gemini's gift is doing that through their ability to communicate. Like, Yes, very much so. And I see that in both of my kids because, again, my son is a Gemini sun. It's not his rising sign, but him to his core, he is so intellectual, so smart. And the way that he talks, he'll have you convinced of anything just because he's so good at like articulating his thoughts and like then helping you to see it too. But then also my daughter is a Gemini rising. So the signs we're talking about today are rising signs. And I see that in her as well. Um, I think that her core, she's a fire sign, but like the first impression, what she's giving off into the world, she's absolutely a communicator as well. But again, I hope that those affirmations helped you to just kind of get a sense of how to locate yourself with regard to the world and how to show up. So, we are going to end today's episode with something that I am learning and something that I am loving and I'm going to try. So, bear with me because, again, this process is, again, something that I love, but also something that I'm still trying to improve upon. So, let's just see how it goes. I'm going to pull some cards from my Kaleidodope deck, if you can see that on YouTube, by Crystal Banner. This is my very first tarot deck. I love it. I love that this one was my first one. The cards are so beautiful. They're all black and just very culturally relevant. So I really appreciate this deck so much. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull 2 cards for each element. Not for each sign because that would take forever, but I'm going to pull 2 cards for each element. And the first card is going to represent an asset. So a gift that you naturally have with regard to your rising sign or the sign associated with your first house. And then the second card is going to be a hindrance. So something that may be blocking your gift that you may be aware of or you may not be aware of. But I'm going to pull these cards and I'm going to try to give you all some insight just to help you know how to better show up in your world, how to better embody your first house sign. And the reason why I also think this is important, and I'll explain this. Hold on, let me shuffle this. So I was on TikTok the other day and I stumbled upon this black astrologers. And so this girl, I don't even remember her name, y'all. So if I can remember to put it in the show notes, I will. But she's a black astrologer and she talked about how to use astrology to take your power back and to feel more powerful, to feel more confident. And one way is to really connect with the sign in your first house or your rising sign. And I really liked that because yes, sometimes the idea of astrology can feel kind of like woo woo and kind of like, oh, it's not based in science, all these opinions that people have about it. But when it comes to personal development, personal evolution, understanding ourselves astrologically can actually be really helpful. There's a lot of power behind your rising sign. There's a lot of power in that first house because, again, it's all about how you show up in the world. And you can get a lot done if you're actually standing up in that power that is within your first house. And so that's why I want to pull these cards because I want you to know what natural gifts do you have, but then also what's getting in the way, what's blocking you so that you can fix it and then move forward. All right, so let's do it. So let's start with fire. And so this is going to be for me because I am a fire rising. So fire sign. So this is for my Aries, my Sagittarius, and my Leos. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. I'm pulling 2 cards. The first one is your asset, and then the second one is your hindrance. Y'all, I'm a little nervous because I'm still... With some of these cards, I'm familiar. Others, I'm not. So I'm using my guided tarot book. I'm showing you this on YouTube to help me understand a little bit better. So we'll see. Ooh. Fascinating. So I'll show you, but I'm trying to like understand what I pulled. So for fire signs, again, this is for Aries, this is for Sagittarius, this is for Leos. For your asset, I pulled the 4 of coins. 4 of coins. And so again, this is the Kaleidodope deck, so it looks a little bit different than more traditional decks. I'm going to look it up really quickly just to kind of get a sense of because I know I've seen this card before, but I just can't remember off the top of my head how to think about this. And I'm also still working on like trusting myself. Um, anyways, um, let's see. Building stability, conserving resources. Okay. I'm going to just read this. The doors of abundance are opening all around you, but now you must reevaluate your relationship to resources and stability. In the Four of Pentacles, which is the same as the Four of Coins, we see a man surrounded by abundance, and that's more in like the traditional deck. That's what that looks like. Despite having all the things he needs, he appears uncertain about the lasting quality of his good fortune. Um, One coin sits on the top of his head. He's cradling another. The other two are under his feet, showing that he has a sense of stability that is tied to his wealth. With so much emphasis on needing, we see the physical. I'm trying to get to the good parts, y'all. The Four of Pentacles asks you to affirm that you are stable and safe, or remember that you always have what you need. Okay, something just came to me with that one. Conserve what you've earned without closing yourself off. Okay, so this was reversed. So the reverse Four of Pentacles can show you that you've been focusing too much on the material side. Emotional and mental stability are just as important. Okay, this is what I feel like this is telling me. Because again, it's helpful to read this, but then also really thinking about what it's kind of telling you more intuitively. We're thinking about assets, right? For our fire signs. And for this is telling me that our asset is like we know how to go get it. Okay, because again, when we're thinking about fire, we're thinking about that creativity. We're thinking about us being dynamic. We are bold. We are like, we're action oriented. So I feel like what this is really saying, after I read some of this, and again, this felt more of like the shadow sides of some of this, but like when we're thinking about assets in this card, I feel like our natural gift, our assets is like we know how to go get what we want. That's just it. Like this card for fire signs, again, our Aries, our Sagittarius, our Leos. We're thinking about the rising sign, so the sign in your first house. You know how to go get it. You know how to do it. That doesn't say anything about your ability to do it. It doesn't say anything about like. It's more like when your mind is right, when the conditions are right, when you're not all in your head, you know how to go get the bag. You know how to go get that thing that you are desiring. You know how to make something happen. That is our gift. We know how to get these coins. That's basically it. So we know how to get these coins, basically. Okay, so what's hindering us for our fire rising signs? This card I know all too well. I know this card all too well because whenever I'm doing readings for myself, I ended up pulling it for myself, and it's so frustrating. I have pulled this card so many times, and it's just funny that we're also talking about my rising sign. So this card is the Eight of Swords. So if you look at this card, and I'm showing you on YouTube, it's basically a mannequin that's propped up by a lot of swords. And so really what this card means is that um, there's something holding you back. There's something that's getting you blocked. You're blocked. It's like you can't move. You can't accomplish the thing you want. You're stuck. You're trying to be unstuck, but it's stuck. But if you look at this card, it's a mannequin propped up by these swords. Those swords aren't holding that mannequin back at all. And actually, what's really holding the mannequin back is probably the fact that it's a mannequin, right? And so, what this means is that a lot of these areas that you're feeling blocked in are self imposed. You're blocking yourself. Your thoughts, your minds, your doubts, your uncertainties are blocking you. There's nothing really in the world holding you back because, again, your asset is you know how to get the bag, you know how to get the coins, you know how to get the money, you know how to get the things you want. But the Eight of Swords, you're blocked for some reason. And so, what can get in your way is this self imposed feeling of, I'm stuck. I don't know how to do the thing I want to do. I don't know how to go where I want to go. That's not true because in your first house, you have dynamic fire. You can literally do anything. What's stopping you is your mind, your thoughts. That's it. And that is so very me. Like, I can't believe these read me like this in front of y'all. Like, I'm trying to do readings for y'all, but this very much was like, oh, we're doing fire. That's you. So let me tell you about yourself. You know how to get the bag, but the only reason why you're not doing it is because of your own self-imposed doubts and limitations. Yep. You've been procrastinating. You've been hesitating to dive into action that will actually progress you. So, sorry to read you all that way, fire signs. I hope that helped you. Yeah, let's move on to Earth. So, with Earth, we're thinking about Taurus, we're thinking about Capricorn, and we're thinking about Virgo. I'm going to pull two cards for you all, the assets and then also what's hindering you. And again, I keep reminding y'all because it's so easy to slip into like your sun sign. We're talking about your first house. So we're talking about the sign associated with a bunch of cards dropped. Hold on. I'm tempted to look at those, but it was so many cards, so I'm not going to look at them. We're talking about the sign associated with your first house. Okay? So again, we're talking to Taurus, we're talking to Capricorn, we're talking to Virgo. I'm pulling two cards for you now. Okay, your asset. Same asset. How did I pull the same card for Taurus? I mean, for Earth signs. All right, well, Taurus, I keep saying Taurus, Earth signs. So Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. Apparently, this is true because it just hit me. If y'all know any Capricorns, whether it's your sun sign or your rising sign, Capricorns are so the affirmation for Capricorn was I am accomplished. Capricorns are so work oriented, so career oriented. Capricorns also know how to get the bag. And it might just be a thing with Aries or with earth signs and with fire. There's something about us that we know how to get the money. We know how to get the bag. And I think it's probably different mechanisms that we're using. With fire signs, it's more about like your dynamicness, your boldness, your ability to take charge, take action. But with earth, I think there's something about earth signs just more internal ability to be disciplined, to be focused, to be self-motivated. Those are the drivers for earth signs. Y'all also know how to get the money and get the bag, okay? Oh gosh. Exactly what I said about Virgos. Remember earlier I said Virgos, they're so focused, they're so detail oriented, they're so calculated, they're so reliable, they're so dependable. When you have qualities like that, there's no way you can't be successful. None at all. So same asset for the earth signs today. Y'all also know how to go get what you want. And I think, again, the way that I'm thinking about it, it's more like internally you all are just grounded in a way that allows you to embody the qualities to help you be successful. Shout out to y'all. So for your hindrance card, this one is interesting. The Knight of Coins came up. So I'm about to actually look at this because I've seen this card before, but I'm kind of doubting my interpretation of it. So nope, I want to look it up. And you all, I'm going to get better. This is good practice for me. Oh, that is so spot on when I think about the earth signs in my life. This is so spot on. So the key words for this card. So for your hindrance, the thing that's blocking you, we got the Knight of Coins. And the Knight of Coins, when you look at this card, what it makes me think of is like this almost like godly hand, like this offering from like the universe or something much bigger and greater than us, offering you a gift, this amazing gift of like prosperity and stability, right? It's an offering to you. So that feels like a good thing. And so some qualities are long-term abundance and steady progress. But I think what this is telling me is that sometimes what can happen for earth signs is that they can allow the long game to interfere with their ability to do the things in the moment. So like your desires for the long game, your goals for the long game, the more bigger long-term goals, like sometimes you might get so far out and so far ahead of yourself, it's hard to do the day-to-day steps, or it's hard to do the thing right in front of you because it might feel so far off. So I feel like this is what this is talking about. Like sometimes what can hinder you, earth signs, earth rising signs, is that you have really big goals, you have really big ambitions, you know that you can accomplish these things because again, your asset is, you know how to get the bag, you know how to get the coins, you know how to do all that. But sometimes your goals, your ambitions, your desires are so beautiful, right, for the Taurus, so ambitious for the Capricorns, requires so much detail and coordination for the Virgos, that it can feel overwhelming. So what I would say to you is like, yes, keep the long game in mind, the long big goals in mind, but break them down. Remind yourself that you can get there, but really be okay with like looking at what's in front of you and trusting that you'll get to that point. That is for the earth signs. That was dope. There's something to these cards, y'all. That's why I keep pulling them. Because every time it's like, oh, wow, that was good. Okay, I'm going to try to fly through the next two because I actually have a meeting in like 3 minutes. So I'm going to be late. Okay, air signs. We're going to do air next. So remember, air is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius is who we're thinking about for our air. I'm going to shuffle these a little bit. One more shuffle for the air signs, air rising signs, our Geminis, our Libras, our Aquariuses. All right, I'm pulling two cards for you, your asset and your hindrance. Ooh, a lot of coins today. Mm. Okay, two of coins. Ooh, okay. I already feel like I know what this one is without having to look. So for our air signs, this is so this is so spot on when I think about the air signs in my life. You got the two of coins for your asset. So this is the thing that you're really good at. This is so y'all. This is so y'all. Two of coins. So if you look at this card, and most cards like this one is like, actually, ooh, I do actually want to look at this because I feel like I'm having a different interpretation for it that is not entirely correct. Hold on. Balance and stability. Yeah. I can see that. Balance and stability. Okay. So if you look at this card, right? This card is this girl, this black girl, and she's like basically in a splits, doing a handstand. So there's a lot of balance and coordination that she's needing to do to accomplish this, right? I'm going to actually go to it and read a little bit more. And that makes me think of Libras off top, like very much makes me think of Libras automatically. Um, Balance and stability are the key words. Balancing your schedule and your personal obligations can be tricky. The Two of Pentacles, or the Two of Coins, asks you to flow with your emotions rather than allowing them to wash over you or knock you off balance. Let's see. Anytime you strive to take your life to the next level, your routine and comfort zones will be disrupted. This is a normal part of expansion, but to leverage in a healthy way, you will need to take a moderate approach. I like this. I think what this is saying for y'all's assets. So again, air signs. So the Libras, the Geminis, the Aquarius, you all do a really good job of balancing and stabilizing. I see this. So for Libra already is just kind of like the scales, right? The sign, when you think of Libra, that's the scales. They do a great job of balance and harmonizing. They're the harmonizers. The affirmation for Libra was the harmonizers. When I think of Aquarius, I also think about this, but in a different way. Aquarius, there's a lot of like mental sharpness and mental clarity, but then also there's this other like creative, fun side that Aquarius blends in as well. So I see that for them. And for Gemini, I can even see there's this balancing of like, so I don't know. I won't go to all of them, but Y'all's asset is balance and harmony, stability. You're using that to flow in your personal lives and flow with your connections with other people. That's your asset. That's your asset. Balance, harmony, stability is what you're really good at. So, what is your hindrance? This is actually a major arcana card, which, if you have no idea what that means, that's okay. But I'm going to explain it to you. We got, ooh, I don't even know how to say this card. I've never gotten this card before. But doesn't he look amazing? The Hierophant. So keywords: teacher, tradition. The path of learning is never complete. Remain open to new courses of study and honor tradition while also forming your own unique set of beliefs and rituals. Okay, you are ready to learn. Okay. I'm trying to think how this might fit for the air signs and what like intuitively is coming to me with this card. Is interpreter of sacred da 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 da. Hmm. What are you ready to learn? Sorry, y'all. I'm pausing, and this is what I was talking about. Like, this is still very new to me, so sometimes it takes me a while to like come up with the things off top. But it's okay because we're learning here and we're growing here. So with this card, the keywords are teacher and tradition. And this card is like a teacher. Like when you look at this card, it looks like this is someone you would go to for guidance. And this is someone you would look up to, like very wise, a lot of guidance. And so, how might this hinder someone? How might this hinder our air signs, our air risings, our Geminis, our Aquariuses, and our um, Libras? Damn, this is tough for me. What is this card trying to tell us? I'm gonna pull a clarity card. So sometimes when I'm not entirely sure, I'll pull another card to add clarity or to speak to the one that we just got. And so for this one, I pulled the King of Wands. King of Wands, King of Wands, King of Wands. Let's see. Boom. So I pulled the King of Wands, but it was reversed. And so keywords for that is abuse of power and bullying. It makes sense now. I get it. And this is why pulling that clarity card sometimes can be so helpful because it pulls together. Okay, so this is what is coming to me. I got it now. So with this card, right? This wise guy, he's so positive. He's a teacher. He knows all the things, right? Sometimes your hindrance for the air rising signs is that you might take your ability to like be the great communicator, be the teacher, the one who has the knowledge, and kind of flip it where it's like maybe sometimes you're not listening to people. Maybe sometimes you're not realizing how you can learn from other people. Maybe sometimes you're talking over people. Maybe sometimes you are just not stopping to see all the ways that you can learn. Because remember, we talked about air signs are sharp, especially the air rising. Y'all are sharp. Y'all are on it. The mental clarity unmatched. And so sometimes your hindrance might be maybe you might be feeling yourself a little bit and you're not listening to other people. You're not taking on the other ways that you can learn. You're completely missing the opportunities that you can grow yourself because you might get stuck in this teacher role, or you might get stuck in feeling like your way is the best way, or other people need to listen to you because you're so confident in your own whatever you have going on or what you have to offer. And yeah, you have a lot to offer, but you also need to stop and to listen and to learn how you can grow from other people. That is what that told me. So those are your assets and hindrances for our air risings. Okay, lastly, we're doing water. I hope y'all are enjoying this. I am enjoying this too. I realize that this is going a little bit longer, but that is why I was like, I can't keep doing these 5-minute astrology segments. Like, there's so much more that we need to talk about here. So, Almost done. Water signs. So this is our Scorpios, our Cancers, and our Pisces. Again, I'm a Scorpio sun, but not a rising. So we're talking about the rising sign. So if you're a Scorpio rising, Cancer rising, Pisces rising, again, your rising sign is what is in your first house. This is for you. I'm going to pull 2 cards for you, your asset, and also what is blocking you or what's hindering you from really showing up in the world in the way that you need to. All right. Okay. So for your asset, we got 8 of coins. I have recently pulled that card and I'm trying to fall back on my knowledge of it. The 8 of coins. So when I look at this card, the 8 of coins, it was reversed. But when you just look at the card, the 8 of coins, this reminds me of someone who is practicing, someone who is learning something, and they are like they're sharpening their skills. They're really trying to hone their skills and get better at it. It reminds me of that person. Let me see what the keywords are. Yep, hard work and productivity. Yeah. Okay. Hard work and productivity. Um, the 8 of Pentacles reminds you that when you do what you love what you do. Financial success and security are the products of hard work and dedication and your level of success. If you've been working hard or trying to learn something new or advance within your current field, your effort will not go unnoticed. Keep up the work. This is all about mastering your chosen craft. Um, Knowing that success is a combination of education and practical application. He's happy doing the work and he believes in himself, and has no problem tackling the same task day after day. In his heart, he knows that he's working towards mastery. Ah, interesting. This, so also the word that's coming up for me is passion. And I think that's the asset for you water rising signs, is there's this passion, because it also takes passion and drive and commitment to want to hone your skills like this, The card is reversed, so that also indicates that you might be burnt out or considering leaving something to do something that's actually more meaningful. But when I'm thinking about this as an asset for water risings, I think that what it's meaning is that there is this passion and commitment and dedication that you all are so good at, and you can easily apply it to the work that you do. And it's because you're so passionate and dedicated and committed to it, it makes you love it. That's what that means. That's what it reflects. And this is an asset for you. The passion, the drive, the commitment that you have towards things. And that's very much related to water, for real. Like, water signs are passionate. They're dedicated, they're committed. And it's because of the love and the feeling and the emotion we have towards things. Also, because this is reversed, I think it also means that an asset for you all is that you always intuitively know when it's time to leave something, when it's time to change something, when it's time to switch something. You know how to switch and move on to the next thing. So listening to that intuition, it helps to guide your passions, your dedication, and your commitment to things. And then lastly, what's hindering you or what's blocking you, I got 4 of Cups. A lot of reversed cards today. So when I usually get a reversed card, I will look at the general meaning when it's not reversed, and then I like take into account what it means for it being reversed. So with the 4 of Cups, this to me, so when I look at this card upright, it's a woman's hand pushing away 4 empty cups. And whenever I look at this card, it reminds me of, like, she's tried everything and she's tried all of those and she's wanting something new, like wanting something different. Those didn't satisfy her. It's kind of been there, done that. Like, I'm pushing them away because I've tried those, right? And when you think of a cup, what fills the cup? So there's different experiences or different things in the cups that she's had, she's done, she's experienced, and she's needing something more. So the key words are like this apathy, this stagnation. It's like, I don't want these. These aren't satisfying me. I got to move on to the next thing. This feels so familiar, and I think it's because I'm a Scorpio sun. We're talking about rising signs today, but sometimes you can definitely get the vibe when you think about your sun sign too. So because the card is reversed, this card, when it's reversed, it means that There might be a dissatisfaction with your current situation that you cannot solve, that cannot be solved by focusing on the past or relying on old stories. Don't wait for your outer situation to change. Change begins from within. So I feel like what this means is that what can hinder or block our water rising signs is just this deep stagnation, this deep inability to change. It's like this deep bad mood, this stuck bad move, this refusal to change. And I think it's because when you're a water sign, the depth of your feelings can sometimes halt you. You can get stuck in the depths of your feelings, your emotions, that intuitiveness. You feel that so deeply, and it just kind of keeps you stuck in one place. This is what's blocking you, and it's because you feel that you're dissatisfied, you feel that you're unhappy, you deeply know that something's wrong, but you can't move forward. It's like, like, yeah, this is not it. The situation's not it. Like, what's blocking you is that when you are in situations that are not good for you, water rising signs, you get stuck, and there's this pause or this hesitation or this inability to move forward. And that is very, very water. Very, very much characteristic of water signs. And so for you, I will encourage you to find ways to try to ground yourself when you are feeling that way. It's good that you're so aware when those feelings come up, but we can't stay stuck in those feelings. All right, y'all, I gotta go. I've been on this podcast too long. I should have started earlier, but I really, really enjoyed doing this. I hope that y'all loved it as much as I did. If you did, please give me feedback because I will do more of this. But next month, we will tackle the second house. We'll talk about that second house, and we'll do a very similar process where we'll go through the second house. We'll talk about what it means for each element, and then we'll pull a card for each one as well. Thank you all for listening today. I really appreciate you all. This was amazing. Again, if you love this podcast, if you especially love today's episode, give me a review either on YouTube or you leave me a comment on YouTube or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Also, just reach out to me. You know where to find me on Instagram. Email me. Let me know how these episodes are landing for you. Hope y'all have an amazing day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening to Dr. Amber's Know and Grow podcast. I love that you're here. I love that we're learning together. We're growing together. We're navigating all these things together. We're really in this together. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave me a 5-star rating and review. That is so important because it helps this podcast grow. And it also gives me some feedback on how it's landing for you. Please share this podcast with someone that you love or someone that you know. And don't forget to connect with me on social media at Dr. Amber Thornton. I'll talk to you soon.